Dumb, Naked, and Broke. Welcome back. This is part two of my episode with NIM Ben-Reuven. Let's get into it.
But oh my gosh, as an aside, going back to growing up and superheroes, this has nothing to do with anything that we've been talking about directly. So apologies. You can edit this out in post, but it's just relevant to me. Growing up in the 80s, sorry, I'm not actually 22 years old, 24. I I grew up in an era where there was like a particular insult that was going around in a lot of movies, a lot of TV shows. And that insult was my actual name. So I grew up with the name Nimrod. And that, for me as a kid, I was like, oh, it's my name. Can't do anything about that. I guess I might as well just deal with everybody making fun of me for some reason. Anyway, in the US, it was like the insult of the day to use that against somebody as an insult. And for me, just like every day was a painful experience dealing with folks being like, ha ha ha, do, 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 do. There's something terribly wrong with you and you'll never be able to change it because you suck. And not knowing quite how to navigate that, like having that brought on to me as like a toddler, like in preschool until like college days, like literally every new person that I met, for the most part, would initiate a conversation about why is your name like that? Why do you have that stupid name? But luckily my closest friends never dipped into that, but had so many experiences like that. And I never had like a good answer at the time growing up. So I couldn't like rebut anybody. For me, it was just like kind of descending deeper into a shell of shyness and embarrassment that
has the name evolved since then?
It has, luckily. And like in the last month, for some reason, I was made aware of an X-Men character that existed in 1985 when all this was happening to me, like in the beginning, that is the most powerful like super villain that the X-Men universe has ever created. And it is a character called Nimrod, which is like a machine AI robot created by, I don't know, a planet created by like maybe some like mixture of
what's after now
humanoids. And that thing was like, it was built to destroy superheroes. Like at the time, like in the X-Men universe, mutants were at war with humans.
Right.
And the humans, I guess, made this thing exist. And they're like, we got to get rid of all these mutants. All these superheroes are too much for the world. So they created this thing. And literally its job was just to destroy everything that was a superhero in the world and then in the universe. And they couldn't stop it. It just was unstoppable. And I was like, God damn, if I had known that, I could like have that comic book in the back of my pocket and be like, boom, what's your name? Is your name Greg? Look at this. You have any super robots named Greg in the Marvel universe? Sorry, Greg. There's probably great Gregs out there, but it's a more common name than Nimrod.
Kindergarten recess would have been interesting for sure.
Yeah, I would have loved to have that. And then now I'm just embracing it a little more. But in college, I just cut it off to Nim because it was very difficult to sit in a lecture hall with 500 other students, have the professor call out your name in full, and then everybody turn around like full laughter, being like, who's that dipshit? And me being like, oh, maybe college is.
I feel like a lot of professors do that intentionally. When it spots one of those names, they just blur it out. Like,
yeah,
where's this person at?
Yeah, let's all take a quick look. Let's all stop what we're doing and let me like massacre this person's name in front of everybody.
Did your parents have any idea what they were doing to
you? No, they were kind of like cognitively dissonant from the reality of it. I mean, they didn't watch movies. They didn't kind of talk to younger folks. In Israel, the name was pretty rare at the time, but it denoted like a rebellious character. Is based on a biblical character that was on one hand a mighty hunter, and on the other hand also one of the most rebellious and prideful characters in the Bible, which when the New Testament came along, the character of Nimrod kind of went from this like revered hunter character into like one of the most despised and sinful characters in the Bible. And if you read Dante's Inferno, which we had to for high school, thankfully, there is the character Nimrod, which is sitting right next to Satan in the pits of hell. And when we got to that chapter, it was like a new opening and flourishing of wonderful insults that I could hear constantly. Still today, I hear the echoes of. But they didn't know. They had no idea. They thought they were giving me some like interesting, different, rebellious name.
This makes a lot of sense now because in the questionnaire for the podcast, pre-interview, you said describe one word. Describe yourself in one word. You said confused.
Oh yeah.
So, seems to make a lot of sense now. I was like, why is that? But I guess we all are onto certain level. We all are. But I feel like that's what life is. You're spending your entire time out here trying to make sense of why you're out here.
Yeah, maybe hilariously confused. Like I'm confused, but I don't take it that seriously. I'm just like, I'm not in any trouble just yet. I'm just like, wow. Why is this like this? Why am I who I am? Never know.
All right, college or no college for artists? Artists and designers.
At this point, you can forget about college. You don't need it to get a job. I mean, most people that apply for jobs, I don't think anybody is looking at your college history. Nobody's looking at your GPA at this point or what degree you have. I think it helps if you want to teach. That would be a plus for going to college, getting like an MFA in order to come back and like teach a course if you like university settings, if that does it for you. The best part, I would say, going to a university is the different people that you meet, that like the bubble that you get out of. I think that if you feel like, well, most people aren't aware of this until it smacks them in the back of their head or in the front of their face. But yeah, if you feel like you need to get out of some bubble that you've been living in, a college in a city is a great place to do that, especially a state school. Highly recommend state schools versus private institutions that cost $30,000 to $40,000 to $50,000 a year.
Yeah, I went to a private university. I'm not even going to shout them out just for publicity.
Yeah, shout out to the schools that didn't do shit for us.
Yeah, I feel like with me in college, unless the university is like, we gonna wipe out that student loan, I'll be like, all right, great. Now we're friends. Now we're buddy. But
that's huge.
Yeah, very. But Illustrator or Photoshop?
Oh, a little bit of both. I'm dipping in. I'll sprinkle it here. I used to just do Photoshop and enjoy my time there, but since lettering came around, it's gotta be both, because can't do the lettering so much in terms of like the fine lines in Photoshop.
And any other Adobe Creative suites or Adobe Creative? What are they called?
Yeah, Creative
Softwares.
I
know
programs.
The suite is like all of them together. So I get programs. Any Adobe Creative programs?
I am
other than Illustrator and Photoshop.
Painfully unschooled in a lot of that suite. I'll dip into InDesign, but that shit slows down my computer a little too much. Like it'll take me maybe an hour to open a file in InDesign, and then at that point I'm like, what am I even doing here? Why am I designing a book, the interior of a book? So I don't use it that much. I used to use it a lot more working in studios and firms, because most of their work ends up in design. So it's a good thing to have if you're a young designer out there thinking to polish some skills. InDesign is always a good, welcome thing to have that you can show off and do fancy things with real quick. But I'm pretty bad with most other things than Photoshop and Illustrator. Like, I've just started Procreate on iPad.
Wow. I was late.
The learning curve is huge for me, because I
feel like similar to kind of Photoshop mixed with Illustrator a little bit.
Yeah, it would seem like it's the next step of evolving these two systems together. I just haven't had that click in my brain that's like, this is how I am comfortable using this.
Yeah, something that's really off-putting when I got, I want to say maybe midway 2019, I got the iPad and Procreate and all of that. It was really off-putting and kind of intimidating, because the program comes with whoever those professional illustrators are. It comes with that artwork in there. Mm-hmm. And you don't even know how to use the program. And for a month, I was like, okay, I guess I have to delete these, because they're kind of, making me feel bad about my skills.
Oh yeah. Like, as soon as I open that first gallery view of what they have there as examples, that's like, nope, I'm going to close this up. I'm going to watch some YouTube now. Watch some videos instead.
But Cardboard Baby, how was that born? Did that come out of any situation, or?
Yeah, straight up joblessness.
Oh.
Going to your dumb, broken, naked elements. I was pretty much at that point.
Dumb, naked, and broke.
Dumb, naked, and broke.
Same words.
Yes.
Oh, you were exactly those things?
Stumbling on the streets of Brooklyn. Probably had some clothes.
Oh, good.
So good. Dumb and broke, definitely.
Half naked, maybe.
Yeah. I was working out of a studio space, a lovely studio space across from where I was living. Well, working is not the right term. I was sitting in front of my computer waiting for work to happen, as we do. And nothing was happening. And so in the studio space, like, it was a huge building with a lot of different artists and people doing amazing things, much more amazing than I was doing at the time, for sure. They were always getting like office supplies. And so there's a constant flow of just like cardboard boxes in the hallway, like recycling bins full of cardboard boxes. And I was like, well, maybe I'll just make a robot to keep me company. And the original idea was to create a system of interviews where the robot would interview other like artists and designers that I was fascinated with, and the interviews would last maybe 30 seconds long, because within that 30 seconds my cardboard robot would completely fall apart, or like some technical issue would happen where it would just like, person would be painting and showing off their work, and the robot would fall into the canvas and screw everything up. And so that was the idea. I was like, I'm gonna have this slew of viral YouTube interviews starring this cardboard version of myself, which of course never happened because of motivational issues. But I would make these little videos where, instead of interviewing folks, because I guess the timing of getting people to like agree to an interview was pretty difficult for me. Also, the premise wasn't the most like, oh wait, the interview's going to be 30 seconds and you're not actually going to hear me speak at all, you're just going to ruin my studio. It wasn't that tempting to a lot of folks. So I was like, well, I'll just do shit by myself. So it was making fun of myself mostly. It started out as like making fun of what I was attempting to do as an artist and designer, and then the industry as a whole, to show like, I don't know, to have some kind of jab at not taking myself so seriously, even though I wasn't working at the time. Probably to make myself feel better about my situation, is to make fun of the things that I can't have, which were jobs. and
That's a new.
financial security.
So with the cardboard baby, now that hopefully you have some kind of stability, at least you look like you have some kind of stability.
Yes, I got a roof over my head. That's good. I got to remind myself of that.
So
It
with
exists.
those like cardboard babies, on average, like what is the, I guess, conception to, to being born? What is that process like?
For a while, it was.
Do you go the maternal 9 months, or what are we doing?
Oh yeah, it would take a while. Like the process of making a 15-second video when Instagram just allowed 15-second video spurts, that was like, it would take a week.
That was such a long time ago. I forgot all about that.
Yeah,
that was kind of annoying, actually. But
yeah, I was like,
that turned into TikTok.
Yes, and now Instagram will be subsuming TikTok into its own fold, I'm sure, and TikTok won't exist down the line. But yeah, 15-second videos. I don't know if like Vines were happening at the same time or just also emerging. Probably Instagram was trying to make Vines on Instagram. I can't remember what the timeline was, but 15 seconds was all I had to work with. And of course, like most setup shots are 15 seconds long. I didn't quite like get the natural editing etiquette and understanding that like the younger folks had. Was like, I only have a 15-second like attention span. For me, it was like, all right, I got to set up the shot. I got to like zoom in and slowly like build up this tension and like have an over the shoulder and all this bullshit. And then I'm sitting trying to edit it like 3 hours worth of material into 15 seconds, and that would take a long time, even though I'm not like, none of it was professional or like well recorded in any way, shape, or form. But those were the beginning elements of like wanting to like make these small cinematic journeys that would, on one hand, like make fun of myself and what I was doing, so I would feel better about not doing it. And the other hand was just like bring elements of my original art form, which was comic strip drawing, into reality, like the next level. So that's where I started being an artist, was in college making comic strips for the daily newspaper in college. And this is like the current iteration of those comics in cardboard form.
Cool. So basically, things coming full circle. With the cardboard baby, I remember, I don't know how deep into quarantines, but those quarantine videos was pretty good. The social distancing cardboard baby videos, they were pretty good, because they were like a take, other than, everyone was doing the, human, where it's like, oh, don't stand so close and sneeze. And I feel like in terms of image wise, that was very aggressive, just because no one, knew what COVID was, and they're showing all these, I don't know who came up with the graphic for COVID, but he did a horrible job, he or she. But I feel like just all the visuals and everything was just so alarming that yours was more of a, same situation, but, it's much more easier to digest, where everyone's like, oh, well, I'm not a cardboard, but, like, I do understand what's happening. And the information was a lot more easier to take in. So I think in terms of that, but also to what you were saying, with how it came about, you think that whole like process, and even now working with, I don't know how often you make a new one, but you think that's helped with, in terms of balance to your creativity?
It was for a while. I gotta say that definitely doing the cardboard baby stuff alongside the other work, the lettering work and the design work that I was doing, was a great like creative balance for me to like get out all the goofiness that was kind of welling up in my system that I couldn't find interesting ways of incorporating in my like lettering work. And so that was great to an extent. And to very specifically like those COVID videos that I made were probably like the last ones that I really produced for the Cardboard Baby. And also coming around into like the more mental health aspect of things is like when I put those videos out was like around like I think most Instagram creators, or I wouldn't say Instagram, most creators who put work out on Instagram have noticed that their engagements and their audience levels have like tanked in the last 3 years since Facebook kind of took over and installed their new timeline, et cetera, et cetera. We've been seeing like the things that we put out there kind of fall on very few eyes. And for me, I think so much of my work depends on how I interact with an audience. Like there's artists that can put stuff out there that feel great about just like putting their work out, being like, I made this. I don't really care what anybody has to say. Just the process of making it makes me happy. I strive to be that type of artist one day. But until then, I'm somebody who's like very keyed in on how my stuff is received or interacted with, or who is able to see it, and like the feedback that I get from that to like maybe develop more interesting things or continue to develop things. I haven't quite found a way to take my beady little eyeballs and head out of that type of pattern just yet. So in creating these videos, I would say I would put it out there that each subsequent Cardboard Baby video has fallen on smaller and smaller audiences. And each time I posted one of those things, I would lose 100 to 300 followers that day.
You think that has to do with your following or Instagram algorithm?
I would say definitely not the content that I'm producing, because it's like so good. No,
yeah, I'm saying like your following, that's in like they're like, oh, Nim just posted the Cardboard Baby again. I was hoping for lettering. Unfollow.
Yeah, I think
or you think it's like Instagram, it's like because I feel like I kind of experience when I post video versus photo, different, engagements.
Mm-hmm.
You feel like it's Instagram that you're posting these videos that, either not reaching your following, or, your following is then not as used to, oh, this is what this artist is doing. And so it's, I don't know, unfollow. Honestly, I don't know how the unfollowing works if like 100 people wake up in the day and it's like, okay, I had enough.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a mix of the two. There's definitely an element of people who like signed up for the lettering stuff and the calligraphy style work, and they're like, what am I looking at here? Why? This isn't funny. This isn't interesting to me. Who thought this would be a good idea? I'm done with this idiot. But it's like so few and far between. I was like, well, what? Can't you just put up with the one video I post every 5 months? But no, people are very fickle. But also, I think the way the Instagram is set up in terms of like what it thinks people wants to see and what people then feel like they think they want to see because of it. It's like if your feed isn't like curated to a point where it like is the same thing over and over again, but just different iterations of the same thing, then we're not going to promote it to people.
Exactly. Which is very boring as an artist to want to be doing the same thing over and over.
Absolutely.
But speaking of Instagram, you posted, I believe, earlier today about the Instagram engagement that only allows 1% of your following to see your work and all of that. But I thought it was interesting because you're talking about, things that potentially may come out of it, like, depression and maybe exaggerating with the suicidal thoughts and all of that, but maybe not. But you made some interesting point, I felt like, about self-esteem and self-worth and all of that. But I feel like on the side of, as a creative, a lot of work go into a project, and you're not necessarily designing a project for Instagram. I have some lettering that I'll do, mostly the black and white ones, where I'm like, all right, I'm doing this because I'm posting it on IG. So that is different. But like work that you create for either for impact or more of a bigger, you know, scope on the work that then you just share on Instagram only to have, like we were saying earlier, with, you know, if a subject matter is kind of intense, and you have I think you have a following about 38 or something, 38K for who's listening on audio.
I paid a lot of money for those 38K. No,
I heard you getting verified in a couple weeks.
Better. I paid also a lot of thousands of dollars for that verification check mark and to like up my Google SEO. So when Instagram checks, they'll know I'm relevant. It's a lot of money. It's where all my money goes to these days. Check marks.
I totally lost the thought that I was having.
Going back to engagement, Instagram.
Right, engagement on Instagram. For me as an artist, I feel like a lot of the work, you know, it's already done before you get to Instagram. And the hard work of building your following and the people who intentionally decided to follow you because either they gravitate towards the type, cardboard, your personality, whatever it is, they made that decision to follow your work. So for Instagram to only show not just you, you know, it's a general thing, just to show your work or whatever you're posting to only 1% of your following. It's such a weird thing. And I've thought about the concept when I think it did this update beginning of 2020 or whenever. But I thought about it, and I've been thinking about what it would be like not being on Instagram. Just because I feel like if you understand things and the workings of things, I feel like I, as an individual, and everyone else that's on the platform, offer a lot more to Instagram than they're offering to the users. And in terms of if you're a creative or someone who has some sort of following, because, you know, over time you've gone through, you know, the hard work of, like we were saying, being able to speak and get your thoughts out there, and whether it's in a creative sense or, you know, audio, whatever, verbal. Just like you put in a lot of work. So, and the following that you're gaining is rightfully yours, in the fact that, you know, these people are like, I gravitate to this person, either that work or who they are. For the platform to only then, you know, disregard 99% of, you know, those people is kind of backwards. But also as an artist, I feel like, because then in order for you to reach your 99%, Instagram will tell you to promote your work, to get to the people who are already there to see your work. That's such a weird thing. That's like inviting 100 people to your art gallery, only letting one in, and then asking the other 99 to pay a handsome fee to get in the art gallery that the first person just got in for free. And, you know, everyone got dressed and left their homes intentionally to see the art. So I think of it in that workings that way. But like, again, going back to what you were speaking about self-esteem and self-worth and, you know, some depression and whatnot's kind of tied in there. Is that something you feel either you have experienced or you feel like is an actual thing?
Yeah, definitely both. And that little promote button is one of the most insidious things that Instagram has come up with, the promote this post, because they know, they're like we're making it so you feel shitty that not that many people are seeing your post. And here's a little button that out of the kindness of our hearts, we've created for you, that you can press and pay, you know, 5, 10, 15, 60 bucks to, you know, it's not that much, just to like reach a few more people, and then do it again tomorrow and the next day and the next day. And then also create a situation where that becomes the norm. Like if you're not promoting your posts, which I think is now what like every brand has to do with their on Instagram.
Has to do. For one, I personally have not yet, but I know I will pretty soon, just because of how it's set up. But in terms of just like you were saying, that's such a weird thing. Even with that promote button, like you're saying, kindness of our hearts. Just even with that, it's such a weird thing, because it's like, you know, like either it's kind of, I feel like it's kind of like having a conversation with a homeless person and then offering them maybe 2-3 of your fries and then putting a bag of food next to them.
Mhm.
And telling them if you're still hungry, you can have the rest, but at a handsome fee. And, you know, if someone's in that position, they have no other, you know, option. So definitely something that's intentional.
Yeah, I feel as a creator definitely sucked into this world of like, should I, shouldn't I? Oh, definitely not going to do it. But oh, maybe I should do it for like my more satirical anti-Instagram social media posts, and that'll like really, that'll twist it up. But then at the same time, like I'm still giving money to
Yeah.
promote this post.
And you're
and-
making Instagram a lot of money by posting.
yeah, there's like, you know, bringing more people into the forum. And I think, yeah, going back to the mental health aspect of it, I've seen myself, like how I approach my work shift since I've been on Instagram. I mean, it started on Instagram, the lettering stuff, and it was wonderful when it was there in the beginning. And it like really helped me deal with a lot of things that I was going through at the time, like the community of strangers that was just like very supportive of things that I was going through like, you know, interacting with my work and finding some sort of connection with it was beautiful. And it was like something I'd never experienced, except for like a tiny bit on MySpace when that first came out, where there was like a moment where, you know, artists were also fascinated, like musicians were blown away by MySpace as like a place that they can connect with
Right.
fans. And you could email a famous artist on MySpace and they would get back to you. Like that was the crazy shit that was happening. Like you would find somebody like, oh, I love this person, I've loved them for all this time, I'm gonna DM them, just say how much I love their stuff, and then they write back and you're like, what I don't think that's existed anywhere else except for like Instagram for a moment.
I think it's done. Even like Instagram, probably you get some weeks, some months.
Yeah, no, different beast. I've definitely been affected by like how it was before versus now, and like having this like need for like being like, oh, it's like, you know, the relationship that isn't quite working out, but it started out like fire. And you're like, I know how this person was back then.
Right.
I could see that in them. I really want it to like go back to how it was, but not realizing that they've moved on and they're a different person now. And I still haven't moved on. I'm just like, no, but remember how we used to be and how we used to walk hand in hand in the park and talk about how beautiful we were. And now they're just like, I'm interested in making money right now. And I'm definitely not interested in you or anybody. I'm interested in that money.
People don't even know the original, what was it, like brown and whatever Instagram logo that looked like that.
Oh yeah. I mean, I could not have
exactly
unless you told me.
Exactly. Things have moved on, but I'm currently still at that point where I feel like depending on if I'm on Instagram for the long run will probably be the following, because right now the one thing I'm caught up on is the people that I have on Instagram, how to effectively transfer them and let them know I'm going to be hanging out mainly on my main website. Rather than Instagram. So like until that, I guess, formula or whatever gets solved in my head. But other than that, one of these days, I might not be on the gram. We'll see.
Yeah, I think that's
I have some creative friends who made that decision just for their own sanity with music and whatnot that they do. Just like, you know, this thing is going in a different direction than what I initially anticipated. So, but also, I think of it as, I know like the younger generation, it's hard to kind of make sense of how are people able to, you know, network and function and do all of this stuff without social media. And I think of it as, you know, like I look at like older designers and design mentors that, you know, figure it out way before social media. And even now, still is, you know, making handsome checks with their business and things. Without social media. Like they have their, you know, firms and stuff on social media where it's like they probably got like 200 followings. Like you're like, oh, this firm is not doing good, but in the reality of it, that firm is doing a lot in outside of social media. So I try to pay attention to to networking, because that's more of a human connection, with networking and removing of the quote unquote middleman that is our internet. But pivot a little bit to a much lighter question. What is your go-to typeface?
I'm trying to figure out how to make this dark and go back into like the nihilistic. My favorite typeface is there is no typeface. It's just what is my favorite typeface? That's a good question. I'd never really used this ever, but I love it. And it's titling Gothic. It's like, there's something about titling Gothic. I don't know who makes it. Whoever does is great. I can't afford it. I'll never be able to afford even one of their weights, I'm sure. But it is like the most, I don't know. There's something about titling Gothic that really gets me, and I always want to use it for something. And then I realize that I can't afford to use it. But maybe that's a good thing. It's like that pie in the sky. And as far as, I tend to not work with fonts that much. I love using like classic cutout like wood type fonts. That's like stuff that I was really into. And back in the day, there'd be like books of like wood type alphabets that I would just like cut and paste, scan, and like warp and rescan.
You're into typesetting and all of that?
Oh yeah, I love like taking individual letters. Most of my projects will involve me in some capacity, just like taking a letter here and like squishing it over here and like reshaping it a little bit. Or just like finding a typeface that looks decent and then reworking it. Don't tell any of the font makers that I do this, because they would despise that. I mean, I would too if I spent 3 years making a font and then some idiot goes and like, maybe I could tweak this serif a little bit.
Raise that X height a little bit.
Yeah, I could feel them like it's like fingers, nails on a chalkboard. So I'll do that a lot if somebody wants like a logo type or something. But yeah, going back to it, titling Gothic, and then more or less anything anybody was using in like the 70s and 80s for horror books, like novels that had some sort of like sci-fi or horror bent to them. Always very creative and fascinating.
Cool. When are you most productive, night or morning?
Definitely in the nighttime. Much more of a night owl. Don't sleep that well at all. I try to, but I had huge problems sleeping. So probably from like 6 o'clock onwards is when I start really feeling work ready. The
6
day
in the morning,
6 at night. So 6 at night onwards. That's when I'm feeling like I'm ready to work. But before then, like there's too much sunlight. I want to go outside. That probably is like the time I use to build up my creative efforts. But if I have to, I'll work at a cafe during the day and enjoy it.
Sure, you're not Dracula on the low?
Little bit of information. Some people already know this. My dad was born in Transylvania.
Oh.
No joke. He was born in Transylvania in Romania. So I may be Dracula, but without any of the benefits. So just like the pale, clammy skin.
Yeah, the benefits.
No benefit. It's like Blade, but the opposite of Blade. If anybody knows the Wesley Snipes.
And you don't get to rock the nice outfits either.
Yeah, none of that.
The fly trench coat.
Oh my gosh. I was a big fan of Blade when that came out. My goodness.
Yeah, exactly. That was another movie too that I saw when I was in Africa. The whole like vampire thing, that was a huge thing. Because I guess it was like kind of like zombies, like the waves. It was like zombie apocalypse. It was like a vampire thing. And it was like, oh, that's where we're going now.
Yeah, that Blade definitely flipped it on its lid. It was like, here's somebody who's like the best of everything, like the epitome, and then also really cool. Like very little wrong with that character, I gotta say. But yeah, so think of the opposite of Blade, and that's me. And that, yeah, maybe I should have put that on my resume. It's like the first thing.
I this particular question, people struggle with it, so I've been curious for your response on this one. Never hear music again or lose the ability to read.
Oh my God. Damn. I gotta lose sleep over this one. I would say, you know, I'd have to have that music with me. I mean, music is probably the thing I need the most in my life. Again, like I wish I was a better musician, but I'm so lucky to have folks in my life that do that stuff. I gotta shout out again to Sun Little and also my good friend Charlie Rabbito, who has worked with Sun Little a lot to like make some gorgeous, gorgeous music. But yeah, if I couldn't hear those folks play or just like the music that I enjoy listening to, that's like very inspiring. Oh, and going back to what we were talking about earlier, movie soundtracks and TV show soundtracks has been something that I've really gotten into recently in terms of just like listening to them outside of the context of the movie.
Right.
And that being like a very inspiring art form for me, to help like with me during my creative process. There's a guy named Colin Stetson who's a saxophonist composer who has created some of like the most mind-bending background themes to some of my like favorite visuals. And yeah, that's I would never want to have that go away. Like I'm very nervous about my hearing and like protective about it. And I feel like somebody could always read me a book if I had the ability to listen to music.
That is true.
But again, if I did not have the ability to music, I'd probably enjoy finding out how to feel the music in ways, because I know there are folks out there that have never heard it as we've heard it and have like moved beyond that into like being able to feel the frequencies in their systems. And so I don't know, I guess it's crazy to think about either way.
Yeah, it's a tough question, but I feel like I would probably lean towards the music side as well. Mainly because I got through a lot of my life without reading. It put me back. It set me back. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, that's that part too, man. It's like all the crap we had to read that was worthless.
Exactly. Honestly, like looking back at like my childhood, the most important books I read were like when I was a kid, was like All You Can Read series, or it's like I Can Read Books. I think that's what it's called. That series.
Familiar with that.
Similar words, yeah. But those I felt like were very, very like in terms of the storyline were very life related. As I got older and thinking about them, but now it's more of like reading stuff, you know, whether it's for creative improvement or spiritual improvement, or the one books I don't read like drama and all that crazy stuff, mainly because I don't know what to read and probably will lose interest if it's like, you know, a storyline that's like, you know, kind of dramatic and, you know, kind of emotionally get you hooked. For me, that I would prefer to watch a movie when it comes to that, but with books, it's more like self-help books and all those things is kind of my go-to.
Gotcha. Is there something you're reading now that you have been blown away by or hate?
Hate.
You really despise the way it's been written.
I haven't gotten any books that I've like hated and be like, I shouldn't have spent my money on this. But I am reading in terms of spirituality. I'm reading a book by Eckhart Tolle. It's called The Power of Now. I'm reading that, and design-wise, I'm reading a couple books design-wise, but the main one that I'm currently on, it's the power of or pitching without manifesting. Manifesting without pitching, I should say. Sorry, I got these titles all backwards. But that one is particularly about, you know, being an artist, understanding ownership, and talks about as an artist, the eagerness to, you know, be a young artist and want to, you know, do work for exposure, or talks about like requests for proposals, you know, getting paid for those and your time and all of that, and the importance of not necessarily doing the work before you get paid. So in terms of being like a young person in the design and art industry, I feel like it helps because I'm not as eager to be like, oh, let me submit my work and see I know my work is dope, but let me submit and see, you know, for free, obviously, and see if they would be like, oh, this is dope, let's, you know, or let me put in the work and design something for, you know, 8-10 hours, and then send it to them, just to be like, hey, I could do this for you guys, and then have them either tear it apart to create a new one, or nothing really comes from it. But it talks about the importance of, you know, understanding and when to pitch and when not to. But it's more like business, in my understanding, more of like a boss / CEO, or any kind of authoritative tune that it provides to creatives. So I like reading that. But I have a couple. I'm the type to like read a chapter, 2 chapters, and then we'll put a book down and then go find the next one, and then probably come back to it at some point in the year. But those 2 that I mentioned, I'm trying to wrap them up because I'm pretty close to finishing them. But a couple years ago, I probably would have not had an answer for any kind of book that I was reading. But, you know, to our earlier point, the exposure to different things allowed the, you know, the consciousness and the growth, whether in concept or execution, to, you know, as a person, as I get exposed to all these things, I'm like, oh, you know, I actually don't know anything. Let me, you know, go and educate myself. But also thinking about that I now have people who are looking at my work beyond just the work, and, you know, because I'm speaking to issues, and so it's nice to be, well, not, you know, as well versed as I could possibly be, but in terms of being able to hold a conversation or go back and forth in the comments and defend my points. And so, like, thinking about all of that and saying, oh, you're not just posting and it's like, you know, a few people are going to see it. You know, people are actually going to try and shape their thought and who they are based on this. So it's a lot more seriousness that goes into it. So all of that tends to help. Did you ask me a question originally?
Yeah. You definitely answered it in terms of what you were interested in reading. And
yeah. So like those 2 things, fire up now and pitching without manifesting.
Yeah, and that's a great feeling, to be able to put something out there and feel confident that you can talk about it, and you're open to like people, like even welcoming people who might not think the same way and like want to engage with you more about it. And to be like, yeah, I got this. I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And then if you like find a few holes poked in there, you like build from that. You're like, all right, I could think about this more. But mostly it's like,
yeah,
bring it on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, I've been in situations where at like an art show or something, like, you know, the work, as you know, is very, depending on who you are and your sensitivity level, it's kind of edgy. But in my opinion, it's honest. But people always try to like subtly have me defend my work, doing like a gallery talk or art show, and they'll trying to make some comments on something. But like I said, usually I'm looking at, you know, a couple different other things than what I'm doing, so that tends to help. For example, the Liberty Freedom Jacket, which is a collaboration that I put out recently.
Gorgeous.
Thank you. That jacket, the lettering on the back and all the craziness, had, you know, it was talking about, you know, prison and race and talking about America and all of that. But to summarize, it was also talking about, you know, the individual and understanding self. And I'm chatting and talking to people about it, and this one dude, it's like he points. I always do like these things, these icons that are kind of repetitive, whether it's like the paper plane or maybe the hearts or it's like lightning bolts. Those are kind of repeated in my work throughout. And he's like, yeah, so those lightning bolts look similar to the ones the Nazi were using. And is that what it is? I was like, in my head, I'm like, that's interesting that you asked me that I would purposely put that on a freedom jacket. But the Nazi lightning bolts he was talking about, in terms of how it's designed, the endpoints have chiseled, like sharp chisel ends. And my personal, or, you know, just anyone who's drawing lightning bolts, understand that one end is chisel and the other end is pointy. So that's the difference. But it's kind of the official name is called the Nazi XS bolt. Mm-hmm. Look like, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So he tried to like ask me if that was in my work, and in my head I didn't say this to him, but I'm like, if you look at the work and look at my skin color and all of that, that's kind of an ignorant question to ask, but I'll answer. So like stuff like that, you know, people subtly would throw it in there because I feel like the understanding of artists is that most artists aren't well-rounded or even like educated people in terms of academics and all of that. So like most people would try to like belittle artists and just like anyone who's trying to make progress in any shape or form. But yeah, for me, I've noticed stuff like that, and that helped me, not necessarily helped me, but it kind of affirmed and solidified that what I was doing in terms of the background work was much needed. Because in situations like that, and for me personally, I don't shy away from a conversation, whether right or wrong. On my end, I'm gonna have the conversation because at the end of the day, I'm gonna be better off for it. So for me, I'm always open to it. But that was something I started noticing, and I was like, okay, this is the right approach. That you're, you know, backing up the art with research and things like that.
Yeah, the goal is down the line, hopefully, like 10 years from now, somebody's going to look at somebody else's artwork and it'd be like, I see you've incorporated Emmanuel's lightning bolts. Tell me about that. Are you talking about like these social justice issues? Just like,
Right.
What does that have to do with your work? Like completely, finally divested from like the other background. Into something new and something more important. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that day when I'm talking with somebody in a museum showing your work. We're talking about the Emmanuel style lightning bolts.
Yeah, thank you. That would be a day to look forward to. Hopefully that, you know, artwork in the museum is right around the corner.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't really know museums and all of that. But a long time ago, I stopped doing artist submission. I don't know what your opinion is on this, because I feel like, again, similar to our Instagram thing that we was just talking about, is such a ripoff with having artists kind of pay probably 200 plus just to submit an art piece that probably 5,000 plus artists is submitted and then not get a call back. So yeah. I think from college, I stopped doing that. And, you know, it's just been rocking solo since then. But, you know, that's why I appreciate like the connections that happen with my work or otherwise, because it's so organic. It's not like, you know, I saw your work at a show or something like that. It's more of, you know, that connection, whether they're seeing it online or in person, prints or whatever. There's something different that each person takes away and decides to hit me up and talk about. So I appreciate that rather than the general consensus of, you know, just whatever an artist wants to hear so they can keep putting out more work.
Yeah, same page.
But that was, you know, why I wanted to have you on the show to talk and chop it up, because I feel like we have similar workings in a way. We've never really chatted to an extent, but again, you know, it's kind of documented in the work. But most importantly, the show, Dumb, Naked, and Broke, It's more about so dumb, naked, and broke, meaning young, inexperienced, and ignorant. So it's the lack of that, it's kind of stifling whoever progress, however way you want to look at it. So the point of the show is just to connect creatives, mostly the younger creatives with older creatives. For me,
I'm on the younger side, right?
yeah, definitely.
Dodge the bullet. Thank you for.
Yeah, but so people like us have a hard time. I remember when I was coming up and doing internships and all of that. Through like the connection of people that was in my life, I believe probably this recording is gonna end because it was scheduled for 3.
Oh yeah, we've got a minute.
But if that does, I might have to hit you up again after this to wrap up. I don't know if it like shuts down or axes you. I've never gotten to that end, so we'll see.
We'll find out. But before the end, I just want to thank you so much for bringing me on this show. This conversation was fantastic. I am honored to be a part of this and to be a part of this, just talking about this kind of stuff.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate your insight as well. And, I feel like the way you break down things is very different than a lot of artists that is on the gram, and also a lot of, like you were saying, a lot of buckets that you can pull from that it's not necessarily the same thing you're doing. So it helps because, again, you cast a wider net in the sense, and different people gravitate towards different things. And like I said, for me, it was the lettering, and then got put onto the cardboard baby. And then hopefully I'll get put onto you as the artist. I'm kidding.
Let's see what happens next. Weird shit.
But thank you for your time, and thanks for I guess you blocked out 7 hours, but I'm gonna be generous. And
yeah, I'm just gonna sit here, stare at the blank screen for another 4 hours, and just talk to myself.
That's the creative process. Oh, we're still recording, so I guess we can wrap up in a more organic way. But also going back to dumb, naked, and broke, meaning young, inexperienced, and ignorant. I feel like a lot of younger people, because of society and the conditioning and the programming and how the system's set up, a lot of people are kind of pushed away from what they actually want to do and chase their passions and dreams and things like that. For me personally, I think the word dream, I probably have written that probably more times than I would see days in my lifetime. Mm-hmm. So for me, that's kind of embedded up here. And I try to have people just like get in the mindset of connecting to what their dreams are. Because for me, it was, the realization and then the work that's going to go into it, and then actually figuring out the network and some things of how to make it happen. But I feel like that is at the very beginning of, realization. So with the show, it's mostly to help people realize their passion and hone in on it, and help them build and help them develop creatively, develop mentally if they can, physically if they can from the show, but also spiritually as well. Because I feel like as an artist, you need a balanced lifestyle to be more productive. And personally, for me, I'm more caught up in the creation process. And even when I'm working, that's the most exciting point. Like from having the concept up here to once I sit down, whether it's nowadays it's mostly on the iPad. Drawing on paper feels so weird now. It's so wild. But like on the iPad, it's like you sit there and then you get the creative burst, and once I get into the idea, the whole process of from the sketch to completion, that is for me the most exciting thing. The end work, the end product, I looked at it maybe the same day that I created, and I'll study it a little bit. But usually when I'm posting and people are seeing the work, for me, I'm over it. Like it doesn't have much weight to it. I'm just like, it's just something. But in terms of the creation process is where I live, and I feel like a lot comes out of that creation process because, it's patience, is, discipline, is, it's kind of breaking down ideas and concepts in your head. And really understanding that for me allowed me to be more like the end process, not to worry about how the end product is going to look. Because I'm like, if I figure out just concept wise, figure out how to break that down, I'm going to approach it, figure that out. If, research is in there, break all of that down. I feel like I look at design. I don't talk about this a lot, but the only time I understand math is when I'm designing, which is weird. And when it comes to money. But it's very weird because like you give me a math problem and I'll sit there all day and I'll pretend like I'm trying to solve it, but I'm not trying to solve it. It's like when you're in class and the teacher looks at you, so you bite your pencil and, act like you're thinking. But
Yeah.
I don't, just like when it comes to math, the brain is just like off. But when it's design, when it comes to design, I could solve a math problem in design. And like I could watch my brain kind of break down these things, but like outside of it, don't make any sense to me. So like for me, I look at design as a formula, like a math formula. You get those algebra equations and you try to figure it out with the numbers. So I'm like, all right, what I have a formula for where I want to go. What I guess what they call variables. What variables you have, meaning concept. Where am I thinking lettering? Am I thinking illustration? Am I thinking the both? And then once I kind of nitpick my different things, then I put them together and I'm like, okay, here's the formula and here's what I have. So I plug those in. And then by the time, I go through all the craziness of creating, the end product really is the solution for the formula that I plugged in at the beginning. So it's not necessarily the creating of, back and forth with, oh, I did this and I'm gonna look at it and then try and critique it and then, do all of that. Their client work, I tend to do all of that, but with personal stuff, it's mostly up here and then going through all of that process, which is kind of chaotic. But mainly looking at it as formulas where like, okay, this color means a certain thing, a bold letter means a certain things, or, a thin letter means a certain thing. And so it's like understanding all of those, I already know what the end is going to look like. So by the time I plug in, boldness for, aggression or, thin letter weight for elegance and decorative, all of that stuff, then you get to colors. And by the time it comes out, it had bits and pieces of what I was looking for. So for me, with the show, I try to help people focus more, especially artists and creatives, on their own process. You got to feel like that kind of opens things up to a lot more, because if you understand how you work, you might not necessarily need to hit up a designer anymore. You can look at their work and try to figure out how they did things, because you yourself have paid attention to your own, workings and understand, like this was achieved by, a clip art, or, maybe that was a Photoshop kind of thing that was brought back into Illustrator. And so once you understand how you're working, breaking down the quote unquote code and matrix to other people's work is a lot more easier. But at the meat of the show and the aim of the show is really to help people develop well-roundedly in all areas, because I feel like as creatives, whether it's society or individual, it just tends to be just right-brained, I guess, and nothing else.
Yeah, that makes sense. And to apply that to the rest of your life as well, and the things that you approach in all aspects, whether it be design or sociology or just like human interaction, that is like a good approach. And if you're listening to this podcast, you better follow these rules, or else. I'm just gonna leave it at that. I'm not gonna make any threats, but just know, you can be punished. Just kidding.
Yeah, before we kind of wrap up here, again, I want to thank you for your time. But one last question just make it two. What lesson you feel like you learned a little too late in life, or lessons?
Oh yeah, probably most lessons. still coming to me. But that's the great part, is like if you're still learning lessons in, you know, the later half of your life, then you're still learning. And that's like, I think my motivation to a lot of life is just the feeling that you're learning and you're growing, rather than like you found like the epitome of whatever it is you're looking for and then you just kind of coast. It's like, you know, visiting the moon when you're in your 30s and then you're done. Like nothing else will compare to that, and you're just like coasting and not doing anything that's of substance for the rest of your life. But if there's a specific lesson, probably having to do with thinking that I needed a lot of formal education for a lot of the things that I want to learn about. And the formal education helped in meeting people, but I assumed that it would bring me education in other aspects that like formal education is kind of advertised as being there for you. But at this point, I think that anything I got educational wise through undergrad or graduate school that I could have gotten from most other places on my own, like with incentive to study that stuff without the, you know, the debt or the massive amounts of money shelling out to institutions that don't quite care for you.
Yep.
That would be a big lesson for me.
Three lessons or three things you feel younger creatives should focus on when developing and working on that craft?
Lesson number one, never take yourself too seriously or your work. That is incredibly helpful to humble oneself. I think for me, especially to like be in the world, to know that what I'm doing is not the end all of creation. It's not like the most important thing in the world. I'm not saving anybody by making something. And I think this applies to like next level, like studios, corporations, etc. I think if we all have a little bit of that humility and self-awareness, and specifically humor and less seriousness about stuff we do, we can put that seriousness into other aspects of our life that requires it. And that helps me a lot to find my positioning and to understand what I'm doing and what I'm supposed to be doing in a lot of ways. Beyond that, more lessons. Something very important for me, and I'm sure for Emmanuel as well, is the process, going back to putting weight in the journey of doing what you're doing, rather than like showing up to a workshop and being like, if I can't learn how to letter by the end of this hour and a half in a level that like Instagram will pay me to influence brands with, then I'm not doing this. If you care about anything and you're passionate about it, it's going to take you years to explore that passion and explore your ability to learn and grow from it. Nothing is going to come within even a year to a level that is deep and meaningful beyond just surface level. And that's kind of like old and crotchety, but that's definitely something that I've felt is important. And also number three, I'm gonna have to think on that one. Get out of whatever industry bubble you might feel like you're falling into as often as possible. So if you're into design, if you're into lettering, make sure that 80 to 90% of your world has nothing to do with lettering or design at any given moment, in its entirety, because those things can definitely pull you into a place that you can get lost in, and can lead to some harmful worldviews in a lot of ways. And don't take my word for any of this. If any of this is bad advice, again, don't take advice from designers. That's something I've always wanted to tell people. Don't listen to designers. What do we know? I don't know anything.
Well, if you happen to be listening to this for the whatever 2 hours,
Yeah, forget everything that you've listened to.
Pretty much.
Go listen to Joe Rogan's podcast. He'll tell you what's up in the real world.
Yeah, that's
Just kidding.
right. I'm on the same level as Joe Rogan. So when you think of my podcast, think of Joe Rogan and do that comparison.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if I don't come up on top, you could go and listen to a few more of my episodes.
Yeah, there's something wrong with you. Definitely.
This has been awesome, dude. I was looking forward to this, and I'm not disappointed. I knew you was gonna come with the.
If listening to it after we've talked, you can always edit out a lot of what I'm saying. Just
Oh yeah, I have an editor, but you don't do the work, bro. You just send it back. It's like curse words, everything is in there. Just send it back. So.
Good to know, man. Well, yeah, I really appreciate the time.
He does a great job. But most likely you will get some good background music, if anything.
Okay. That sounds great, man.
One last question before I let you go. Do you fold your pizza when you eat it?
Oh, man. I've been learning something new about myself. I mean, this is a much longer answer than it is necessary, but
that's a pretty yes or no answer. But let's get into it.
I can't eat pizza anymore. It makes me angry.
I didn't know that was where this was going.
Pizza makes me super cranky after I eat it. I mean, I've enjoyed it in my life, both folded and both scrambled. But either way, that shit is gonna make me cranky afterwards, and I don't know why. It's just like a mental thing completely.
Mental. You don't think is a food ingredient thing?
It might be the bread and cheese. I can enjoy myself while eating it and be like, "Ooh, this is a really delicious slice of real New York pizza." And then within 10 minutes, I'm gonna be mad. I'm gonna be cranky. I'm gonna be grumpy. And that's all I can say. I don't know why. And yeah, I'll come back on the next podcast if I'm ever invited back. I will explain myself better.
Awesome. NIM Ben-Reuven, artist, designer, video producer. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
People who are listening to you go and find you on the gram or website or anything?
They can find me on Instagram at NIM_BR. I'll have the person put it up in post editing right here.
Okay.
Or NIM_BR or NIMBenReuven.com. You'll see more work related stuff there. Or just Google the most powerful superhero in X-Men history. Find more about me.
I feel like you low-key told me that story just to tell me that you're kind of unstoppable. That was
I'm trying to embody that more so these days. Specifically because I have that opposite of Blade physical form and also power form. None of the powers, all of the paleness. But yeah, thank you so much, man. This was great fun.
Awesome. And thank you. Dumb, Naked, and Broke. Till next time.